Okay, let's just dive right into this explainer. Today, we're looking at something truly special: the tea shop of Malfi, a story of gratitude. It's this incredible, real life look at human resilience and just how far the ripple effects of a single act of kindness can actually go. Picture this. You just stepped out of the biting, freezing mountain air and you sit down on a rickety wooden bench in guard wall. Instantly, the 17-year-old kid named Bridge notices you're looking, well, a bit pinched and blue, right? So he immediately offers you a warm fire and a steaming sweet cup of cardamom tea. Right off the bat, he's just this incredibly generous host. As he's pouring your drink, Bridge starts chatting. He tells you how he used to work in this crowded, totally polluted shop way out in Panapot just to save up some cash. He actually managed to escape that chaos, came back to his beloved mountains, and set up this humble little shop. But then he points toward the hillside, tracing the 3-mile walk he does every single sunset to get home, and drops a pretty heavy truth. His ancestral village, Molthi, it's just gone. It doesn't exist anymore. Now, to really get what Bridge went through, we have to talk geography for a second. Folks living up in the Himalayas, they're totally used to tremors. Those slate, deep rumbles in the earth. It's just part of life there. But what happened one October night about 4 years ago? Yeah, that wasn't just a tremor. It was this absolutely terrifying, earth-shattering monster of a quake that people literally felt hundreds of miles away in Delhi and Lucknow. To put the sheer, massive scale of this tragedy into perspective, just think about this. Out of the 670 villages in that valley near the epicenter, a staggering 602 were completely destroyed, literally wiped off the map. In under 5 minutes, centuries-old mountains just collapsed, turning entire communities to dust and instantly snuffing out hundreds of lives. And Bridge? Bridge and his uncle only survived through a complete stroke of luck. Actually, scratch that. It was pure chance. Bridge had traveled to a nearby town called Pari just to buy some school books. When the massive quakes started hitting, over and over, they had to spend the whole terrifying night outside in the open. Pari, thankfully, survived, but as Bridge tells you, with total heartbreak in his voice, while Clivey did not. When the sun finally came up, the reality they faced was just absolute devastation. We're talking entire regions completely leveled, reduced to ruin. Dozens of massive landslides had triggered overnight. Huge boulders were just tossed like pebbles across all the main roads and tracks, which, as you can guess, caused agonizing delays for the army rescue teams trying desperately to reach all those trapped villagers. So much precious time was eaten up just blasting those rocks to clear a path. Because of that, it took 4 long, agonizing days before help finally reached Molthi. And when Brige and his uncle finally made it back, their 2-story stone-built family home, the one with the beautiful slate roof his great-grandfather built, was flattened. Literally turned to dust. Every single house, wall, and roof in the village, gone. The army eventually got there and started clearing the debris, the scattered, broken remains of what used to be this vibrant community. Bridge was just wandering around in a complete daze, totally numb. But that numbness completely shattered when his uncle pulled him aside and gently told him that the victims' bodies, including their own family, had already been taken down to the riverbank for their last rites. It's just an impossibly heartbreaking thing to process, right? In his mind, Bridge is holding on to this warm, vivid final memory of his mother, his grandmother, and his 10-year-old brother Nilu, all smiling and waving at the doorway. But the reality standing right in front of him? Just grim, white-shrouded figures laid out by the funeral pyres burning down in the valley. But wait, there was one person missing from those pyres. Buli, his 2-year-old baby sister. Bridge's uncle was convinced that the freezing cold or the wild animals had already gotten to her. He told Bridge she was dead. But Bridge, he absolutely refused to accept it. No way. He dropped straight to his knees in the rubble, completely frantic, crying, and just desperately digging through the earth and stones with his bare hands. So as he's literally clawing through the ruins, this bone-tired, dust-covered army officer walks up to the sobbing kid. The officer's uniform is totally grimy, he clearly hasn't slept in days, but Bridge notices something. He has these surprisingly kind eyes. The officer crouches down and gently explains that his exhausted men have done absolutely everything they could, and by daybreak, they have to move on to the next ruined town. The officer walks away, and you can just feel Bridge's absolute despair, right? But then, about 10 minutes later, something shifts. The officer unexpectedly comes back, and he's got 3 soldiers with him, Armed with spades and crowbars, they start digging doggedly into the dark, working by the light of these hissing Petromax lamps. They dig, and then, at hour 116, somebody spots a tiny foot. The tension in the dark rubble right then is just palpable. You could hear a pin drop. The soldiers feverishly clear out the small hollow. They grab the edges of a massive, heavy wooden door that had somehow, miraculously created a little shield. Everyone is holding their breath, hoping against all rational hope, and they heave the door up. And then someone yells, "She is alive!" A massive, ragged cheer just erupts from the makeshift camp. They're looking at an absolute, undeniable miracle pulled straight from the dust. Against all imaginable odds, baby Booley had survived an unbelievable 116 hours, buried alive beneath all that heavy debris. Think about that. She endured the freezing mountain nights, the threat of wild animals, and the sheer terror of the actual earthquake. The soldiers snatched her up, wrapped her in a warm blanket, and rushed her straight to the medical tent. And Pooley lived. She really lived. But here's the bittersweet part. When Bridge went to give his profound, heartfelt thanks the very next morning, the officer was gone. Vanished. He and his men had already packed up at daybreak to go save the next village. Bridge didn't even catch the guy's name. So for years, Bridge carried around this incredibly heavy burden of unexpressed gratitude. He carried that heavy feeling with him everywhere. He eventually moved away with his uncle and sister, got that job at the crowded dhaba near Panipat we talked about earlier, and kept searching. He would look at the faces of every crowd, every truck driver, just hoping to spot that officer. Then, one late winter night, a tired traveler steps out of a truck. Now, it wasn't the officer, but he looked a whole lot like him. So Bridge serves the man a cup of tea. When the weary traveler tries to pay, Bridge waves the money away. He totally refuses it. And in that exact moment, Bridge feels this strange, incredible lightness wash over him. He realized something huge. Even if he could never thank the officer directly, he could honor the man's memory by showing that exact same unselfish kindness to other tired strangers. And every time he did it, he felt this massive surge of sheer joy. That one realization was a total game changer for him. Bridge quit his job at the Panipat dhaba on the spot, which honestly his boss was probably thrilled about, considering he had a waiter who kept giving away free tea. He packed up, went right back to his beloved Gardwal Mountains, opened his own little roadside shop, and finally found true peace, just serving weary travelers day in and day out. Which brings us right back full circle to where we started. Bridge smiles at you, the cold traveler sitting on his rickety bench, and he absolutely refuses to take your money for the tea. He tells you that his hospitality, which by the way is arguably the best cup of tea in all of Garhwal, is his lifelong tribute to the nameless hero who dug his baby sister out of the rubble. So, as we wrap up this explainer, I want to leave you with a thought about the unbelievable ripple effect of human kindness. Bridge found a way to repay an absolutely immeasurable debt just by paying it forward every single day. It kind of makes you wonder, right? Who is the unsung army officer in your own life? And how are you paying their kindness forward?